From Carolla One Studios in Glendale, California, this is the Adam Carolla Show. Adam's guest today, Ed Calderon. With Gina Grad on news, Bald Brian on sound effects, we'll play the Rotten Tomatoes game, and Dave Damashek's here for good sports. And now, if LAUSD shut down for a year when he was a kid, he still would have done about the same. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. No choice but get on the mandate. You get it on. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for sharing this show with a friend. I can see it in the ratings when you do. Good day, Gina Grad.
Good day to you.
Handball, Brian.
Let's play some games.
Yeah, well, we got Rotten Tomatoes to play. I had a thought moments before the mic heated up. I like to keep my little notepad with me, my piles of papers like a crazy nutty professor, although I ran out of my house and I left them at home, but I have my backup notebook with some notes I've jotted down. Ed Calderon is I'm going to talk to him in the second half of the show. We're going to get to that massacre in Mexico. 27 people massacred, flew right under the radar here as far as the news cycle.
Are we talking about the rehab center?
Yeah.
Yeah, we touched on it, but we don't have any answers.
We touched on it, but he's going to kind of tell us how that worked. And I think the hint is folks who live here make the pilgrimage over to Mexico and do the dirty work and then come back here. But we'll talk to him. So, comforting. Edward James Olmos and that whole mafia story that I was talking to about with Danny Trejo and the movie he made and all that kind of stuff. He'll have some thoughts about that. But first, a thought as I was just talking to Dr. Drew, who was in here a bit earlier. And Dr. Drew is always he's kind of a ball of nerves and pins and needles and anxiety. He's a normally anxious guy, and he's just always been that guy. And it's some of it is him being sensitive, and the other half is just a neuroses. But
his resting terror face.
Yeah, his resting terror face. But here was a thought that ran through my brain the second the mics heated up, which was, what is this big difference between the folks that are in their early 60s and mid 50s and they sort of friends, what I would kind of consider friends, parents when I was a kid versus all that's going on now? And when I was young, and one of my friend's parents, that was just a guy smoking in a cardigan, and whatever shit we were into, like whatever music we were into, or whatever fad was going on. Now, back then, it was something mechanical. It was like clickety-clacks or some game, don't break the ice or don't spill the beans or, some Sizzler Hot Wheel set or something. It was something like sort of physical, but maybe there was a thing that kids or us or as young people or culturally we were into, but the guy in the cardigan with the cigarette didn't give two shits what we were into. It was none of his business, and it was considered just sort of
folly.
It's exactly what it was. Like, all right, when you guys are ready to grow out of this chicken shit and join us in the adult world, I'll be waiting for you with your first cardigan, beer, and pack of Lucky Strikes. And so that's what it was. And as far as whatever music you were listening to, that was more just chump change. Just, you idiots listening to dumb stuff. You should be listening to Perry Como or whoever I'm listening to. And thus, there wasn't an anxiety because there wasn't them trying to fit in. They weren't trying to appear young. They were old. They knew it.
They earned it.
Yeah, your job was to come up to be old like me, not for me to dumb it down so I could hang out with you. And there wasn't really any new technology or anything that you had to keep up with or be aware of or laughed at when you pronounced it, the wrong way. Like I sent an email out to a few of the notable comedians I know saying, hey, we're working on this Mad TV documentary, and we're working on this meme docs about memes. Like, Leno called me, and he was like, I don't really know what a meme is. Like, I can't have anything to contribute because I work on cars. Like I don't know what that is. And there has always been a generational gap. But the difference is Drew feels very obligated to be plugged into what his young daughter is doing and what they're up to. And by the way, minding his P's and Q's to use the right words and the right labels for the ever-changing vocabulary. Like when I said transsexual, it's like a transgender. Like, oh, I thought it was trans. Oh, no, old man. Come on now. Come on, old man. You got to join us now. And there's like, you see politicians, you know, Joe Biden's trying to keep up as fast as he can keep up with his Latinx, Latin-R, like.
Well, yes, as it pertains to Joe Biden, the thing that occurred to me is a lot of a contributing factor, not the main factor, but a contributing like erosion is like you have the Joe Bidens of the world or the Iron Sheik of the world or George Takei, like people who are of advanced age and really have shouldn't know about this stuff, shouldn't be social media superstars, but to have people running their social media so as to appear younger and more with it and their opinions clearly are reflecting a younger sensibility. And I don't know, I can't speak for George Takei, for example, but like I know for a fact that like people run like the Iron Sheik, his social media, and thus he appears cool and very of the moment when in fact, fucking guy has no idea how to work a phone.
But it's working on me because I'm writing him in this year during the election. I don't know what his Christian name is, but I'm just going to write Iron Sheik. I think people get the idea.
Sheik, the Iron.
Right. So this thing that old guys need to stay tuned in and by the way, up to date, like as if, Drew has a medical practice and Drew has to kind of keep informed on new medications and new procedures and new things. Otherwise, he's going to be the antiquated doctor or he's not going to do his job. There's a social environment. There's a social version of that. And I think it's causing anxiety with folks like Drew who feel like they don't want to get left out or left behind or sort of pushed aside. Like, hey, we're moving on and we're moving on without you because it's all about young and hip and free and cool. And you better be hip. You better be able to name all of the Kardashians. Otherwise, you're out of it, Pops.
Yep.
Versus when I was a kid and, it's kind of curious. Like, I don't know. When I'm 56, when Frank Sinatra was 56, I was probably 13. I didn't think of it as his job to come down and learn my language.
Right.
I look at it as that's the fucking chairman of the board. I should start memorizing some of his songs. I didn't look at it as me come to him or him come to me or. Johnny Carson was, 70 years old and doing monologues when I was 23, and I didn't look at it as my job for him to learn. You got to learn. You got to hear my words. You got to listen to me. You need to hear my voice.
Step into my truth.
Right. And so I think what's going on is guys like Drew and many others are having anxiety because instead of the old way, which is I'm the old man, I'm the boss, you guys, if you work hard, keep your nose clean, one day you can drive my car and live in my house. You can be up, you can scratch and claw your way, aspire to be me. Mm-hmm. Now I'm aspiring to be you, which is now causing anxiety because it's hard to aspire to be someone who's 23 when you're 63, especially when the aspirations stop because you have so much more money, so much more experience, so much more life experience, so much more training, but they're still like, I don't want to get shunned by a 22-year-old.
Right. And boy, that means the young folk really have it all because you're aspiring to be the person that you pay for. Like, what's in it for you? And
it's also like, you're not aspiring to be the 23-year-old version of yourself because the 23-year-old version of yourself was a broke mess piece of shit. You're aspiring to be the 23-year-old version of them.
Right.
And maybe this dovetails nicely, but Bari Weiss, the female, just resigned today from from the New York Times. I guess she was an op-ed and a contributor and stuff. And she was like, basically, I can't keep up with the kids. Like, I'm out.
Twitter's running the op-ed page.
Right.
Or Twitter's editing the New York Times, whatever she said.
Yeah. First off, how fucking unlucky for us that we happen to be alive during a time out of all the time in history where old people are now bad. Like anyone over 35 is considered out of it and an idiot. And or by the way, just racist.
Yeah.
Gina, you're still good.
Yeah,
Oh,
Gina,
thank Christ.
yeah.
Whew, got 10 more years.
So this notion that everybody who's old is bad, and now somehow we should be listening to the lunatics who've taken over the asylum. You have highlights from her resignation letter. Sorry. How old is she, by the way? I never figured that one out. Well, she's been there. She knows it.
She seems seasoned.
36.
Oh, she's not.
Oh,
she's not
wow.
that old. But I guess old compared to 24. All right. What'd she say?
It is with sadness that I write to tell you that I am resigning from the New York Times. I joined the paper with gratitude and optimism 3 years ago. I was hired with the goal of bringing in voices that would not otherwise appear in your pages. First-time writers, centrists, conservatives, and others who would not naturally think of the Times as their home. The reason for this effort was clear. The paper's failure to anticipate the outcome of the 2016 election meant that it didn't have a firm grasp of the country it covers. The priority, in opinion, was to help redress that critical shortcoming. Twitter is not on the masthead of the New York Times, but Twitter has become its ultimate editor. As ethics and mores of that platform have become those of the paper itself has increasingly become a kind of performance space. Stories are chosen and told in a way to satisfy the narrowest of audiences, rather than to allow a curious public to read about the world and then draw their own conclusions. My forays into wrongthink have made me the subject of constant bullying by colleagues who disagree with my views. They have called me a Nazi and a racist. Several colleagues perceived to be friendly with me were badgered by coworkers. My work and my character are openly demeaned on company-wide Slack channels where masthead editors regularly weigh in. There, some coworkers insist I need to be rooted out if this company is to be truly an inclusive one. What rules that remain at the Times are applied with extreme selectivity. If a person's ideology is in keeping with the new orthodoxy, they and their work remain unscrutinized. Everyone else lives in fear of the digital Thunderdome. Online venom is excused so long as it is directed at the proper targets. Nowadays, standing up for your principle at the paper does not win plaudits. It puts a target on your back. Too wise to post on Slack, they write to me privately about the new McCarthyism that has taken root at the paper of record. All this bodes ill, especially for independent-minded young writers and editors paying close attention to what they'll have to do in advance to advance their careers. Rule 1, speak your mind at your own peril. Rule 2, never risk commissioning a story that goes against the narrative. Rule 3, never believe an editor or publisher who urges you to go against the grain. None of this means that some of the most talented journalists in the world don't still labor for this newspaper. They do, which is what makes the illiberal environment especially heartbreaking. I will be, as ever, a dedicated reader of their work, but I can no longer do the work that you brought me here to do, the work that Adolph Oakes described in that famous 1896 statement, to make of the columns of the New York Times a forum for the consideration of all questions of public importance, and to that end, to invite intelligent discussion from all shades of opinion. Oakes' idea is one of the best I've encountered, and I've always comforted myself with the notion that the best ideas win out. But ideas cannot win on their own. They need a voice. They need a hearing. Above all, they must be backed by people willing to live by them. Sincerely, Bari Weiss.
Wow. So she's gone. And that's where we're at. I told you guys this whole young demo, fucking kids are the future, get out of the way thing. That was sort of counting on them being the future and us getting out of the way and them not being colossal, snot-nosed douchebags, which they've all turned into. We thought they were going to lead the way and lead by example. But this sort of naive thought that, oh, the young people, they know what's going on. They're hip, they're now, and they're going to lead, and they're going to lead in a way like a Kardashian in a Pepsi commercial. They're going to walk up to that National Guardsman and hand him a Pepsi, and they're going to make everything. We didn't know they'd be little fucking egotistical little snots. We didn't know what piles of egotistical shit they were all going to be. We should have known because they were told they were the greatest the entire time, but we didn't know what piles of shit they were going to be, and we didn't know how scary and vindictive they were going to be either. We thought they were just going to lead the way, not like stare into the rearview mirror and try to get everyone canceled and wished into the cornfield. So now
you're supposed to be drunk on Zima, not drunk with power.
Right.
But, I pulled just to support that point. I don't know if you saw it. Patton Oswalt talks about this, and he calls it trailblazer irony. And he has a whole bit about it for RuPaul, which is phenomenal. But someone posted this Grammatic on Twitter about trailblazer irony in terms of comedians. And it's like 30 seconds. I thought you might want to see it. And this one he talks about Joan Rivers.
Sometimes your bravery helps bring about a world that ironically you don't belong in anymore. Ooh. And it's such a weird, I feel like that's what happened to Joan Rivers at the end of her career. She broke so many goddamn barriers for women and for talking about certain subject matter. And then at the end of her career, she suddenly saw all of her stuff get parsed by this new generation that's like, this generation that's attacking her and parsing her stuff. You're enjoying the freedoms you're enjoying partially because of the shit that she did. She laid down barbed wire so you could run across it and then point at her for not using the correct language. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it can go no other way.
It's interesting. I had a thought as it pertained to Bari Weiss and Twitter, and Patton kind of crystallized it, which is back in the day, or there was for time immemorial, like in order to get a platform, you had to ascend to a certain level through a body of work or some great accomplishment. You got to a platform. Now, by virtue of Twitter, which ironically meant to give everyone a voice, everyone's got this platform now. And granted, it takes a few thousand people to get the voice of to get someone canceled or get someone an op-ed removed or whatever. But now everyone's got that platform, but they haven't earned it. You know what I mean? Like they just all of a sudden are like, oh my gosh, I've got a platform. I can publish something and the world can see it.
Yeah, you used to have to earn your bullhorn. Now everyone is assigned a bullhorn on their 13th birthday, and it's deafening. And and also there's a kind of a problem. There's a problem when you're in the op-ed business, or you're in the poetry business, or you're in the joke writing business. If you're in the op-ed business, the joke writing business, the poetry business, the songwriting business, but let's just go back to joke writing. Like imagine if Norman Lear was writing All in the Family and back in 1973 or something. And then every time he wrote a page for the pilot, he just put it out there and shared it with the world. And everyone got to weigh in. You know what I mean? I don't know. He called Meathead a Pollock. I find that deeply, deeply disturbing. And then they'd feed it back to Norman Lear, and then Norman Lear would write, okay, call him a dummy. Let's get rid of Pollock. Let's get rid of the people have spoken. Imagine if you're trying to create something. Now, it's not that way with news coverage, but it is that way with, Tom Cotton's op-ed on the National Guard and looters. That's you going, hey, what do you think? And them going, I don't like it. Take it back. Well, imagine if any form of art or any music composition or any jokes. Imagine if jokes work that way. Like, hey, Chris Rock is going to write a joke. All right, well, let's vet it first. Like, show us the joke. Show us the setup. Then tell us the punt. No, you're not taking that out on stage. Please, please, please. It's kind of the death of art. It's also the death of opinion.
Yeah, and I don't know if this phrase has been thrown around or not, but as you said that, I thought it's kind of a socialism, because what's the point? What's the point of aspiring to do anything if you could just be canceled? And why would you want to do anything when you can just sit around and cancel somebody else when you're 15 years old?
True and true. So keep your eye on this, people. And there's only one real answer, which is pushback and tell the kids to settle down. They're not always going to get their way because they're kind of drunk with power right now. We have a unprepared, speaking of comedy, from which show? Is this from Quarantine or where's this at?
This is from Dallas.
This is from Dallas.
I mean, not Dallas, excuse me, Houston, sorry.
Same place.
Yeah.
And this is from Houston. What is the subject for this unprepared?
Because it's from Houston, they wanted you to talk about NASA.
NASA. All right. Here we go. Houston, NASA.
It's in the back. Well, the very back, yeah. NASA. What is it? NASA. All right, NASA. National Aeronautics or something like that. It's an acronym. National Aerospace. Huh? National Aeronautics and Space Association or something like that. Listen, exploration? Exploration. Oh, listen, drunk guy eating chicken wings. Why am I going to you? Drunk guy eating chicken wings. I'm going to him for all my technical information tonight. Wait a minute, how many liters in a gallon? 7 million. Okay. NASA. All right, I'll do NASA. Put your hand down. I'm doing NASA. As far as I can tell, Elon Musk can get us to Mars cheaper than NASA can get us to Bakersfield. My thing is just fucking privatize everything, compete, and let's just do it that way. I know everyone does this thing where they're like, well, let the government handle it. Think about how great the automobile is today. I mean, think about Audi, Mercedes, Ford kicking ass, Chevy, whatever you guys drove here, it's all 1,000 times better than cars were 20 years ago. And think about how competition is a tide that raises all boats, right? And imagine if there was no competition just in automobile manufacturing, right? I mean, imagine if there was a car just called government car. It'd be a beige Pontiac Aztec with like 2 Space Saver spares on it. Imagine, look at it this way. All right, let's talk Tex-Mex. You guys love tacos? All right, everyone's competing for tacos, right? You do that thing, we go, oh, this taco truck is awesome. Have you tried this taco place? Imagine if there's a place called Government Taco. The government is now in charge of tacos. How fucking bad would that taco suck? All right, so let's just expand this thought into almost everything in life. My feeling is let Elon and all these other guys compete. Let them make a killer rocket. Let Tom Cruise go up there. And frankly, never come back. I mean, he's made 185 movies. He doesn't age. He rides a motorcycle through westerns. I'm done with Tom Cruise. I don't feel like I need to pay NASA $200 billion to do what Elon Musk can do for 15 cents. So let the crazy folks make the rockets, and NASA, look, it was great. I mean, I love all the movies where the shit is moving in slow motion and the people are walking out in slow motion. I love all those asteroid movies, but enough is enough. We've been to the moon. And this whole thing where it's like, we need to go back to the moon. I don't know. Did Frank Sinatra ever say, I need to fuck that cocktail waitress again? No. I fucked her once, that was good enough. I want to fuck a new cocktail waitress. The chairman of the board would never want to go back to the same pussy. And I feel the same way about the moon. We're done with the moon. Now we go to Mars. Elon will show the way. Take Tom with you and never come back. Thank you. I like that you guys applaud. Why would you applaud that? That's horrible.
I do, as much as I'm looking forward to Top Gun and everything, I would miss Tom Hanks because I feel like he's a part of us. Tom Cruise doesn't feel like he lives in our society. He makes movies and then he leaves.
Yeah.
He returns to Earth to make a film.
Right.
Yeah, it's like Tom Hanks is kind of ubiquitous. He's telling us to put on a mask. He's keeping us updated on COVID-19. He's showing up at this and he's showing up that. Tom Cruise is it's like as if he doesn't live here. He's sort of
it almost wouldn't make a difference because he's not here anyway.
Yeah, it's like Schwarzenegger when he was a governor, I should say. He didn't hang out in Sacramento. He was down in Venice Beach. You know what I mean? Like he didn't live there. Yeah. All right. So he could go to outer space and never come back. All right. Let me hit Liquid IV and then we'll play some Rotten Tomatoes game. Liquid IV. Dehydration occurs daily in 3 out of 4 people. I don't know if you knew that. It is getting hot and it is getting dry out there. And I'm doing a lot of sweating when I'm taking my walks, and that's why I shake up my Liquid IV. Fast, most effective way to stay hydrated, especially over the weekend, Dawson. If you're having a couple of cocktails, slug a Liquid IV down before you go to bed, man.
It works so good.
It makes the next day a lot better.
And if you forget it, you can still solve the problem by pounding it in the morning.
Yep. Each serving helps you get as much hydration as 2 to 3 bottles of water. I like the lemon flavor the best. I just put it in a bottle and I shake it up. And when I take Phil for a walk and I'm sweating it out there, that's what I use. 5 essential vitamins, more vitamin C than orange, as much potassium as a banana, which Drew will tell you is very important. No artificial colors or preservatives or flavors. Less sugar than an apple, non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. It's Liquid IV, right, Dawson?
Yeah, they also have one to help you sleep. Liquid IV is available nationwide at Costco and Target, or you can get 25% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code ADAM at checkout. That's 25% off anything you order when you use promo code ADAM at liquidiv.com. Get better hydration today at liquidiv.com, promo code ADAM.
All right, shall we play a little Rotten Tomatoes game, Maxipata?
Listen to that noise. It's a high falsetto voice. It can only mean one thing, and you can feel it.
Dawson names her flicks, and the gang makes their picks. Guessing if it's rotten or fresh.
If they guess it exactly, we'll get a bonus 5.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game. You know how we do it. Give me the Rotten Tomatoes game. Now it's time to play it.
Well, it's the middle of summer, and we still can't go to the goddamn beach. Well, strap on that Speedo and grab your towel. We're posting up with a beer and a joint, and you'll have to pry them from my sandy, suntanned hands. Rotten Tomatoes is going to the beach. First, cue the slow motion music as the most beautiful people on earth run toward the camera in red bathing suits. But maybe it's not quite how you remember. No Pamela Anderson or Hasselhoff in sight. Nope. It's The Rock, and Zac Efron, and Alexandra Daddario. From 2017, Baywatch.
Wasn't this supposed to be like a send-up of Baywatch?
Yeah, it was kind of like 21 Jump Street was to 21 Jump Street, like sort of a comedy. It's a weird genre, but 21 Jump Street sort of got away with it, so why not? I just like in the actual series that Hasselhoff's son was named Hobie, as in Hobie Cat. He named his son after a catamaran. Like he loved. He
was so dedicated to the sea.
Yeah, when I would watch like The Price is Right in 1979, like we're giving away this Hobie Cat. It was like a catamaran. Like they give away plastic Z-brick, which is fake brick wallpaper, and then a Hobie Cat. And like a player piano, and people had to guess. How can you possibly guess on what a catamaran costs? All right, so I saw this movie on cable. It's like a bunch of good-looking people running in slow motion and a bunch of jokes, and it did not do what. It was just really a bunch of people greased up with their shirts off, looking good. It didn't accomplish what I guess 21 Jump Street did, which is like a sort of funny version of the series. But everyone is charismatic and it's kind of fun to watch, and for that reason, I give it a 41.
Oh my, 17.
38.
We're out of the gate with 5 off. Baywatch is rotten at 17%.
Oh!
Yeah, it is.
Nice.
Yeah, they hated this one.
Our next film is essentially a one-man show. It's a story of survival, isolation, and love between a man and his volleyball. Tom Hanks and Wilson star in 2000's Castaway.
Quietly one of the most rewatchable movies.
Yeah, very rewatchable. Somehow movies, in a weird way, without so much dialogue, are easy to rewatch. Plus a great plane crash scene because they just get right to it. It's like, all right, so we all know this is good and even great.
There's no reason this shouldn't be 100%. This is exactly what it's set off to accomplish. It tells the story perfectly, but it's going to be less than that, of course.
Yeah. So, is it? Are we going to be angry at 84? Because it could be, and or is it 93? There's something. For some reason, in order to get to 95 and above, you need some struggle or some race relation or some sort of struggling. If he was on that island,
he struggles.
If he was on that, but if he was struggling with his sexuality, then it would be a 97.
Ball, for God's sake.
Just kind of survival stuff.
God knows what he had to do to survive.
I say it was great, but the critics gave it an 89.
Ooh, that's exactly what I said. I think it's up for Best Picture.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for it. It might be a little high. I said 95.
Castaway, certified fresh at 88%.
Sick of this.
Brian's still in the negative zone.
Oh, that's right. I got a -4.
Right.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure our next movie is about surfing, but mostly it's about watching a piping hot Kate Bosworth say some dialogue in a bikini. I think it's about following your dreams. I don't know. Kate Bosworth and Michelle Rodriguez star in 2002's Blue Crush.
Yeah.
This movie sits 25 feet behind me on DVD. Christy loves this movie. I've never seen it.
It's a fun movie. It's not them riding the pipeline that's fake. It's them being maids at a Marriott that's fake. Like, if you open the door and these 3 chicks were standing there, like, we're here to clean your toilet, I'd be like, all right, let me get my pants off. I'll be in the shower. I'd go full Weinstein. I mean, their jobs, their daytime jobs were maids at, like, the Honolulu Hyatt.
No, they're front desk material.
Yeah, they're for sure front desk material. So
Blue Crush, there has to be some sort of pun, too. It can't just be a wave thing. Is one of their names Blue?
No, it was just one of those. It was a fun movie to watch. And, anytime anyone good looking does something underwater, it's always good. And it's good. It's not a throwaway Dumbo kind of surf bikini chick movie. Like, there's a little bit of a beginning, a middle, and end. There's a point to be made. Christy probably saw it right at the right age to kind of go, oh, yeah, identify with that. I say it's strong women competing in a man's world. And for that, we give it a 71.
Oh,
wow.
Wild guess, 68.
I said 65.
Blue Crush is fresh at 61%.
Oh, good. Needed that.
Wow. Just fresh.
Now, maybe it's not fair to dip our toes this far into the past, but why not toss in a challenge? We're blasting back in time to 1965 to watch Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello shake their booties to that wild new rock and roll boogie from 1965, Beach Blanket Bingo.
I was just talking about this movie, and I was also just talking about Back to the Beach with Frankie Avalon and Annette Funicello, if anyone was unfortunate enough to see that in the 80s. And Lori Loughlin.
Don Rickles and Buster Keaton?
Yeah, it's crazy.
The winner.
It's crazy.
Good heavens.
How these people would show up in these old... Again, I've been watching the shit out of Love Boat, and they have like Ginger Rogers and Ethel Merman and stuff like Milton Berle. Like they all pop up in these episodes because it's like they're old, their career's over, there's nothing to do. Love Boat's hip, and they want to be. Their agent calls them. All right, I can't tell. I have no idea if this is like total schlock or they gave it. Okay, I'm behind. I'm behind big time, and also was reviewed at the time. Has it been reviewed since? I have no idea. I'm off the pace. I got to go strong one direction or another. I'm going 26.
Yeah, that might be smart. I don't think these movies are very well beloved at this point. They took a shot in the dark and said 51.
I said barely fresh because who doesn't love the kitsch? 60.
Beach blanket bingo is fresh at 73%.
Oh, I'm out. Now,
There goes my dream of single digits.
What are the chances that the audience has it at 52? Yeah, I think Gina's right. I think they like the kitsch of it, but it only has 11 reviews, so that could have all been done in 1959 or something. All right.
All right, we're going to end things with one of the most dramatic beach endings of all time. It's been a difficult journey infiltrating a group of surfing bank robbers who also enjoy skydiving. But it's all come down to this, the 50-year storm.
Yeah.
Via Con Dios, Keanu Reeves, and Swayze in 1991's Point Break.
Yeah, I followed them to the end of the earth.
This is tough because this is one of those right in the middle of, when you should have seen it. I don't know if anyone else thinks this is a masterpiece. I'm not sure.
Well, it's got a lot of good going for it. And let's not forget what's her name directed it.
Catherine Bigelow.
Bigelow.
San Carlos' own Catherine Bigelow.
Wow.
Who's obviously a very good, was it Zero Dark 30 or was it Hurt Locker?
Yep. And no, she's both. And
both.
she did Blue Steel right before this. She's an accomplished director.
Right. So you can tell even the script's a little schlocky, but she's bringing it.
It's really
And it's got a lot of good scenes in it. It's technically a good movie. Like it's a good action. There's some stuff going on. It's interesting. This is tough because it is a good movie. It's not the kind of thing that the critics are going to give praise to, but it's got a female director and a female director of an action movie, which there wasn't a lot of that going on back then, and she did a very nice job.
And Lori Petty's pretty scrappy. She's not your typical leading lady.
Right, and you got
tomboy.
I think you got Anthony Kiedis from Red Hot Chili Peppers in there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it is just fresh at 63.
61.
66.
Maybe because of the female director, Point Break is fresh at 69.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I'm out.
I even saw the stage show.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and they hand
that.
you fake money in the when they rob the audience.
Gina Grad, congratulations. You made the podium with a score of 48.
Not too shabby.
Adam Carolla. Double dog balls. 88, my man, for third place.
Snowmen.
Leaving us Bald Brian, who at the very beginning had a chance to closely match his minus 16.
Oh, no.
Day that will live in infamy.
Never be beaten again.
Bald Brian pulls a Larry Bird. 33 for the win.
Wow.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Fun game.
Yeah.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game. You know how we do it.
All the beach blanket bingo reviews are all post 2002. All of them.
They're all contemporary.
If you want to know how the world works. All right, let's take ourselves. What was the movie? Was it Blood In, Blood Out? What was the Olmos movie? The Edward James Olmos.
American Me.
Oh, American Me. So I'm going to talk to him about it because when I was talking about Danny Trejo, I don't know if you guys know the story of that, but Edward James Olmos made American Me. I don't know, mafia, Mexican mafia, gangsters or whatever. And Trejo told him, hey, you can't have these guys being gay or having gay sex or doing any of this stuff. And he's like, why? It's a movie. I can do what I want. And they didn't like that. The mafia, the Mexican mafia.
They wouldn't tolerate that?
No. So he's been kind of on the run. And maybe there's been a guy or two killed who was involved with the movie. Yeah. These guys they don't fuck around over there.
Yeah, the 3 consultants on the film were murdered shortly after the movie was out, and Danny Trejo says that he's aware of 10 people being murdered for the involvement of the film.
Oofa.
Hey, can't judge. It's a wonderful culture.
Yeah, so supposedly Edward James Olmos refuses to talk about the film publicly because there's a hit.
I don't blame
there's been
him.
extortion, proof of extortion on him. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that works. Hey, go ahead and draw a picture of Allah. Go ahead. Or Muhammad. Go draw a picture of Muhammad. No, I'm cool. It's pretty effective when you want people to sort of stop doing stuff. You just kill them. And then they stop. That's works. It's effective. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll do the news right after this.
Give me the news with Grad. News with Gina Grad. Breaking viral, all those crazy Trump tweets. Give me news with Gina Grad. Trouble in the Middle East. Celebrity drunk meltdowns. Deep news with Gina Grad.
The news with Gina Grad.
So we do have a little bit more information on the Naya Rivera story, and I know we did some hypothesizing, maybe just what happened, why it happened. So we know that the 33-year-old former Glee star went missing 5 days ago while boating with her 4-year-old son at Lake Piru in California. The boy was found unharmed in a rented boat. Naya disappeared. And the Ventura County Sheriff Bill Ayub summarized Naya's final moments that featured saving the life of her 4-year-old son, Josie. I'll give you a little information after, but here's a clip from the sheriff.
We know from speaking with her son that he and Naya swam in the lake together at some point during their journey. It was during that time that her son described being helped into the boat by Naya, who boosted him onto the deck from behind. He told investigators that he looked back and saw her disappear under the surface of the water. Naya's son was later found asleep on the boat, which was adrift in the northern portion of the lake known as the Narrows.
So the idea perhaps is that the boat started drifting. It was not anchored. They were, playing around in the water. And at that point, she mustered all the energy to just sort of hoist him onto the boat, swim after the boat perhaps, and get him onto it, and just didn't have the energy left after that is
wow.
what I think they're hinting at.
I feel bad. I was thinking she may have committed suicide. Now instead she was saving her kid.
Yeah, it seems like they were just kind of jerking around in the water and being silly, and the boat wasn't anchored.
Well, I'm not, Mr. Safety First guy, but I guess you got to put that life preserver on if you're going to go out in the lake that way, because especially with your kid. And I don't know if the kid was wearing a life preserver or not, but for you too, because that thing will get away from you.
Her life preserver was on the boat, and as I mentioned the other day, I mean they were using sonar, dogs, drones. And the reason why this was so difficult is because not only are lakes murky, and we talked about the bogs, but this particular lake, it's like they said during a drought, it has a lot of growth and a lot of trees and giant plants, and then the water rises again, and underneath that water is like its own forest. It's just, you can get tangled in anything. There's capsized trees, there's brush. It's like if you drained it, it would be a forest you couldn't walk through.
I was watching TMZ last night, trying to get caught up, and Orlando Bloom was out on his little motorized sort of he had like a little hydrofoil surfboard thing. And I'm curious about this, Max Zapata. It's a kind of Laird Hamilton kind of thing, but it's a miniature surfboard that's got a propeller on it and a hydrofoil, and you get up above the water. And
I've seen this.
I saw it too. I was at Malibu a few weeks ago. I was like looking across the street, and there's guys just kind of buzzing around on it. And I thought, I want to try one of those things. And the second thing I thought was, that thing has to have a hell of a battery. And then the third thing I thought of was, how long can that go? Because the amount of energy it would take to get that propeller spinning, to get the speed up, to get that thing where the whole
water pumping.
Yeah, the whole body, and I think it has a propeller, but maybe it has a pump. But whatever the battery is, that's a huge draw. And then the next question is, Max Pat, is the guy operating it via remote he's holding in his hand, which I guess he is, and is the battery pack on him or outside of the water somehow as well? And then what's retail, and Christmas is coming up. Write all those things down, because I thought I'm going to get on one of those things and buzz around with Orlando Bloom.
The one or two that I've seen definitely have water pumping below. You know what I mean? Like spraying water out. It's almost to hoverboard.
Yeah, but it's not a propeller, is what you're saying.
Not as far as I can tell, but then again, I've only seen a couple of them, 100 feet away.
But it could be a propeller, right? Pushing the water?
Something's pushing it forward.
I think it makes sense that a propeller would be more economical in terms of battery burning instead of like a water jet, like on a ski boat or something like that. But
is it powerful enough to propel a 200-pound person, let's say, on top of just a board?
I think you got a better shot with a prop than you do with a jet, but I have no idea. So they got to be several $1,000s. And they'll either have the propeller or they'll have the jet. But then the question is you must not be able to stay up for more than 6 minutes at a time or something like that. Like that battery's just got to go unless they make a plug-in version. But
how'd that work?
What is it, Max Zapata?
Kayla will put up a picture or video of it, but I think what you're talking about is a 2020 Slingshot Hover Glide. That's what they're calling it. And it looks like it has a propeller. It goes for about $1,800 on the website.
$1,800 seems on the low end. And the batteries last how long?
The ones that you've seen, do they look? The ones I've seen look as though they're being pushed off the water a good 6 or 8 inches. Are those the ones that you're seeing?
8 or 10 inches. They're like a mini surfboard. They have the wing at the bottom, and once you get up off the water, then you're hydroplaning, and then there's not a lot of drag. And then the kind of question is, and I think you're probably looking at a bargainy basement-y one. There's probably ones that are $8,000 or something.
Yeah, well, look, if you type Orlando Bloom and anything with a surfboard. There's a picture of him with Katy Perry and a surfboard in 2018, and that just it's flooding out.
Forget that. But the hydro board or whatever it is. But then, like, how long does it say you can go out and do it? Because you really feel like you're working the shit out of those batteries.
Yeah.
But anyway, interesting. Sorry.
You guys have seen the not the hoverboards like you're talking about, but like the jet packs that they get really high in the air with the water just rushing down. Mm-hmm. So I hadn't even seen the hoverboard until now. Chuck Woolery, not a name you'd think would be in the news anymore, yet here we are. President Trump retweeted a post by game show host Chuck Woolery, of course, Love Connection, that basically...
Former game show host.
Yep. Basically claimed everyone's lying about the coronavirus pandemic in a possible effort to thwart Trump's reelection by harming the economy, according to CNBC. Woolery wrote in a Twitter post on Sunday evening, this is the post. The most outrageous lies are the ones about COVID-19. Everyone is lying. The CDC, media, Democrats, our doctors, not all but most, that we are told to trust. I think it's all about the election and keeping the economy from coming back, which is about the election. I'm sick of it. He didn't cite any details or which lies he was talking about, but the president did repost it. And there has been a little bit of backlash from four former directors of the CDC.
You mean 2 and 2?
2 and 2,
right.
that's 4.
Right back at you. They fired off a little bit of a verbal shot to Trump. They've co-authored a scathing op-ed in the Washington Post. They don't call Trump out by name, but here's part of it. They say, public health experts face 2 opponents, COVID-19, but also political leaders and others attempting to undermine the CDC. Unfortunately, their sound science is being challenged with partisan potshots, sowing confusion and mistrust at a time when the American people need leadership, expertise, and clarity. And all 4 served under Clinton, Bush, and Obama. So I don't think that's a partisan issue.
I think Chuck is a pretty wild right-wing guy and has been for a long time because he's had a few...
I think it's in his Twitter bio that he's a Hollywood conservative.
He's had a few tweets. He's had some pretty crazy tweets out there. Speaking of crazy right-wing tweeters, Max Zapata he does have a little correspondence going with James Woods.
What?
A little back and a little forth. So we're working on it.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee, but there's a little rapport.
He is enthusiastic about coming on.
He's enthusiastic.
It will happen.
It will?
But based off, I mean, we don't have a set date, but based off of his language to me, he's really into coming on the show.
Oh, is there something new? Because I remember there's a little back and forth, like some good and some bad.
No, there's nothing new, but it's what I've told you. He's a big fan of you, Adam, and he would love to do it.
We're going to talk the specialist almost the whole time.
Working in a casino, man.
A little bit casino, yeah. Does he know about Sonny?
I didn't catch that one, but I saw the specialist 185 times.
You're in that place.
Is he aware of Sonny and how he the imitation of the highest form of flattery?
I don't know. That specialist, I mean, it's funny because in that scene where he's in the Miami bomb squad precinct and he's giving everyone a speech on, how the explosives work and how they're all rank amateurs and everything, it's a really corny scene that is way over the top, but you can still see his crazy acting chops in it.
Oh, yeah.
Even though
he's sticking his teeth into it.
It's a good scene.
It's a crazy...
We watched it.
It's a crazy fun scene. Well, if we find it, we'll watch it again. But Ziffy board, what is that one again? It's got a propeller. How long is the batteries on one of those, Max? Does it say like battery life? You must have a handheld remote, right? You must have something like that.
I found the picture of Orlando Bloom. He is holding a remote.
But is it a TV remote?
It's either that or his keychain. I don't know.
So he's got a remote. It makes sense. You have to have a remote because you could be just kind of cruising along and kind of up, and then it's some. So here's knowing what I know about technology. You charge the battery, and you could probably buzz along just like you're on a surfboard, but on the ground, maybe on the water surface for a half hour. But if you want to go full hydroplane, you have 6 minutes or something like that. So you'd hit it high, then you'd try to pop it up, and then you'd buzz around while the batteries were going down pretty quick. We shall see. All right, let's just listen. Just in the fantasy of me going over this scene frame by frame with James Woods when he comes on the show, who does not do publicity now or anything like that. But let's just listen. I love this goddamn scene. You guys got to watch The Specialist.
Hey, Sport, where's the bomb squad? Hey, come on, boys and girls. Come on. What are we doing here? Let's look alive, huh? What do you got?
We're looking into everyone at the party, doing a complete background check, okay? Give me the next one, all right?
I like when computers used to make noise. Enhance.
Enhance.
Tell you what, I'll handle the biographies. You go back to Trace and C4. Okay, Ace?
He's a dick.
Chief says you're on this?
But he's the best.
But I don't take orders from any anything. All right, Ace?
And I got to tell you something. I mean, I'm sorry, but I thought your chief said that the fullest cooperation would be forthcoming. And I got to tell you something, Sport. This doesn't feel like full cooperation to me. I mean, look at this shit here. What is this? This is Shouldn't this be in the lockup? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys are the experts. Maybe you don't need me. I mean, like, what is this? This is,
Smell it.
This is Semtex. Am I right? Plastique. Plastic explosive. Am I right? I don't know. You're the expert. I mean, this little bit could blow up this whole area, and if this area goes, the whole building could go up. Am I right? Gosh, I don't know. I mean, maybe if I put this in here. What else do we have here? Oh, this is a plunger detonator, am I right? And that's a little mini receiver. You know, this looks like American circuitry to me, and I gotta tell you, call me a patriot, but American craftsmanship, it's the greatest in the world. See? Watch this. Here we go.
The greatest living actor.
Yep. Perfect fit. First time, every time. Screw it on, and one little twist, and voila, a perfect receiver bomb. Which, of course, is absolutely worthless without a transmitter.
Oh, yeah.
But hey.
He knows his way around that office. He's never
20
been
seconds,
in.
and we're hot. Okay? Okay. Now you deactivate it, you sanctimonious prick.
Okay, you cut that cartridge.
Oh, yeah? Huh? Come on. Come on.
Okay, you made your point, all right?
Have I? Huh? Huh?
Okay, that's enough.
What do you mean it's enough? You think I give a shit if this whole fucking block goes up? I don't. You mean you've had enough? Isn't that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Enough is enough.
Huh?
I can't do it.
12.
What the hell are you? You crazy or something?
7 seconds of
Craziest
a life.
person you ever made in your life. 6, 5, 4, 3.
Please.
Now here's a tip. You take care of this shit work. You leave the folks at the party to me. Okay? We on the same page here? Ace.
He's the world's greatest actor. Just from that scene alone. He must have been nominated just from that. Just from
sure.
Just on the strength of that one scene.
I think he is an Oscar-nominated actor. I have to look that for El Salvador. God, I gotta look it up.
No, I'm pretty sure it's for Straight Talk with Dolly Parton.
Oh.
Would you better ask him about?
And I think El Salvador was just called Salvador.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was Oliver Stone.
Nominated for 2 Oscars, according
Wow.
to IMDb.
It was a good movie.
Yep, Salvador and Ghost in Mississippi.
He's good. You know, when there's a movie where like Jim Belushi is good in it, and that was Salvador, and where Tom Arnold is good, like in oh God.
True Lies.
True Lies. Like when you go,
He was great in True Lies.
Right, that's the point, is when they take guys that aren't really that good and they're good in the movie, that means it's a good movie. All right, Gina, what else we got? Sorry.
Will you please ask about Straight Talk?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. All right. Then I'll do another story. So the Public Transportation Commission in Berlin has come up with an idea, a way to get people to wear masks on city trains and buses, according to Jalopnik. They're requiring masks, but banning deodorant. So they hope that their No Deodorant on Trains initiative will make people want to put their masks on because people be smelling so fresh. Yep. Their infection rates as a whole been pretty low during this pandemic, but Berlin is showing itself to be a new hot spot. So they're just coming up with creative ways to get those masks on people.
This is it's a goof though, right? Like you
Well,
can't
yeah, but
ban.
if you do that, but if you do that advertising campaign, it gets eyeballs.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Let's stay in Germany. Everybody wants to get back to work. Everybody. That includes the sex workers in Hamburg. About 400 prostitutes held a protest on Saturday calling on the government to reopen brothels, which are legal in Germany. The Association of Sex Workers organized the protest, saying the continued closure of licensed brothels was forcing some prostitutes onto the street, which is illegal.
It's got to be a tough needle to thread, like if you're a politician and you're like, we've got to reopen these brothels. Oh, what about the schools? That can wait.
There.
That can wait.
Bigger fish to fry.
But what about churches? Hold please, let's keep our eye on the prize, people. We're talking brothels now. We got to, you have to want to reopen brothels, but you have to be kind of casual about it. You can't.
Well, like you said, you can't be the guy with your first guy with your hand in the air.
Right. Who wants to reopen the brothel? Whoop, here we go.
Well, and that's the point, because they've allowed shops and restaurants and bars to reopen, and the ladies are like, what about us?
You know what's weird about the brothels in terms of societies go? The most advanced societies have brothels, and then the least advanced societies have brothels, but the kind of in-betweeners don't have the brothels.
Rich man, poor man.
Yeah,
Rich
it's kind of
poor country.
It's like I feel like the in-betweeners are sort of like United States and Canada, and I don't feel like there's a lot of brothels. I mean, we have little versions of it, and then there's there's the Philippines and Germany. They have brothels. You know what I mean? It's the in-between struggles with the brothel.
Yeah.
That's right.
The for some civilizations, hey, it's a no-brainer. People want to fuck, they got money, leave them alone. And then others are so evolved, it's well, this is what we're evolved to. It's kind of the middle. The middle countries don't really, they're not really down with the brothels, right?
No, we leave it to the Netherlands mostly.
We'll get there. All right, let me hit Bet Online. Sports keep coming back, so it's your chance to wager on them. Exclusive partner we have over at betonline.ag. UFC, NASCAR, Formula One. I was just watching Formula One the other night. They are back. Also, need more soccer as well. If you need more, you can Bet Online has simulated NFL, Madden games, NBA, 2K, and UFC daily. Plus, future odds on everything you can imagine, season totals, division odds, and every league championship. Visit betonline.ag. Use the promo code podcast1 and pull out your mobile device and join. And if you use the code podcast1, you get a welcome bonus. So visit betonline.ag, our exclusive partner, Podcast One. Don't forget, promo code podcast1 for your sign-up bonus today. Bet Online, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Gina Grad, let's do one more.
You got it. So let's do a little auction talk.
Hold on.
Yes.
We have more on Orlando Bloom and his electric surfboard.
Okay, so it is not electric. What these are called are hydrofoil boards. So
that's like a Laird Hamilton thing.
That's exactly right. Yeah, Laird pioneered it, and it has you have a wing with fins that goes underneath the water, and it lifts you above the water. About a foot, so it's actually just a different feeling than surfing because there's no friction or floating.
So when you catch a wave or when you get the current going right,
it takes the under part of the swell too. So it's.
So he doesn't have a remote in that particular case,
right? It looks like he has one in his hand, but all the ones I'm seeing, or at least most of them,
sunglasses. Maybe
those are sunglasses.
Electric,
yeah, interesting. And the electric ones will kind of achieve the same thing if the water's calm or you're in a lake or there's something.
Yeah, some of the electric ones I'm seeing more used in a lake or wakeboarding or something like that.
And does it tell you how long you can buzz around before you got to recharge things?
With the electric ones, I'm seeing 45 minutes is a really good one.
Good long run.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. All right.
The one Orlando was riding is not electric.
Katy Perry is super pregnant, yo.
That was the story they were covering.
I know. I was watching TMZ last night. All right, sorry. Where were we, Gina Grad?
This isn't a Katy Perry story, but it is an auction story. Something that Brian may have a little more knowledge of than you. Sealed copy of the Super Mario Brothers game from 1985. It's for the original Nintendo system. It made it the most expensive video game ever sold. And I'm wondering if anyone would like to wager a guess.
May I see the game? Is there a picture of the game?
No, just guess.
Let me tell you let me tell you something that's sad. It's kind of 40-year-old virgin sad, but I was looking on Bring a Trailer, like to look at car stuff in the mornings, see what's out there. And there's a BMW, I don't know, it was probably an 88 or an 89 BMW M3. It's an old car I used to have. it's a $40,000-$50,000 car, and this one's like over $100,000. Like, hey, what gives? It's like it has 8,000 original miles on it, and there's like, this is a baseball card that's never been opened or touched by human hands, or this is an action figure that's never been out of the package, or this is a Star Wars figurine that's never been out of the package. It's a car that's never been driven. It's a video game that's never been played. It's an action figure that's been in a package its entire life. We're sending a dangerous message to young people, which is get the sports car, get the action figure, get the baseball card, get the video game. Don't touch it.
Don't use it.
Don't you use it. You want it to be worth something when you're dead, don't you?
I've always felt that way about jewelry because I'm not a huge jewelry person, but anyone who's like, oh, my good stuff's in the safe. I'm like, yeah, in the safe. And then you'll pass the key, that safe key to somebody else, and the jewelry will just sit in a drawer for the rest of all eternity.
Where are you guys with this? Because I have some thoughts on it because a version of it pertains to me, not as it pertains to jewelry. But where are you in the... I own this very expensive jeweled necklace it's worth $10 million. I don't want to go out to the opera house in it. It could be snatched in the parking structure. I had a replica made of it that's exactly the same. I'm going to wear the replica. Now, I'll give you a clue. My way of thinking is like, if you have the actual version of it in your vault at home, and you've made a recreation of it, I somehow look at wearing that as different than if you didn't own the actual version of it. Thoughts?
Yeah, same thing with purses.
Yeah, Christy got a fake wedding ring when we went to Italy, I guess, 11 years ago. She didn't want to walk around. We did so much walking and gypsies and whatever. She didn't want to have the hassle,
Brian, please.
Losing it, stealing it, whatever.
Was it a recreation of the original?
No, it was off the rack from Macy's, $18 or something like that.
I'll give you...
It was close enough, but it was not designed to be a replica.
I have the real first Apple-sponsored Porsche 935, as you guys know. If you can find a picture of that CarMax bet, I love that picture, and I love it, but it's not painted like Apple, and it's not done like Apple, and it doesn't have anything like Apple. It's painted like Hawaiian Tropic because the car changed liveries over the years, and I have it in the original livery, which is the Hawaiian Tropic livery that Paul Newman raced it at Le Mans. So he raced it in 79, and then in 80, it turned into an Apple car. And a lot of the Apple nerds are like, you should put it in the Apple paint, which is what you guys are looking at now. Now, my red Porsche that's at the other shop, that's the car. Obviously,
I would imagine cars, you correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine cars don't suffer the same fate that Star Wars toys do, where you can't use them like they're meant to be driven, right?
No, but this is, I'm pardon the pun, I'm shifting gears here, which is I am building a tribute clone car of the Apple liveried car, which I would normally look at as kind of like, why do you want to do that? But I own the actual car, and I'm building a tribute to it based on owning the actual car, which for some reason I've rationalized it now makes sense. Now I can do that because I have the actual car. It looks
That's FME money.
It looks good in the Apple. Boy, show the Apple one more time. It's such a
and it's more inclusive looking.
That's right. It's more inclusive looking in the Apple livery. All right.
Well, it's funny that I have to answer that question of the copy of the jewelry. That is so funny to me because my entire life, and I'm not doing it. I wear my grandmother's wedding ring, but my entire life, my mom, who knows me so well, I lose everything. I'm flighty, and especially as a kid, I was just a fucking mess. She'd always go, well, when you get engaged, we're going to go right out and make a copy of that ring, and that's what you're going to wear because you're going to lose it. And I have that ingrained in my head for decades. And I think about it with this one too. I worry this is still an heirloom. So I always hear my mom going, you better make a copy and wear that. You're going to lose it.
Well, it seems very bizarre and human. On the other hand, it's also crazily pragmatic, I guess. Yeah. And, Yeah, I would. I'd make a copy of that one and put the other one in a safe deposit box or something. And then there's also that part where you hand it down to your girl or whatever, what have you. Anyways, look, we're gonna die.
Would you
soon.
venture to guess? Thank you. Would you venture to guess, as we wrap it up, what this A+ condition sealed 1985 Super Mario Brothers game sold for at auction?
I have no idea, but because we're talking about it, it has to be something nuts. So I'm going to say $86,000.
I'll go a little lower, $55K.
$114,000.
Oh,
what the hell?
Nerds, man.
I'm telling you, the nerds have money and they're willing to spend. The one theme that we have with all these auction things is, racing helmets and things like that are all cool, but the nerd items, the gamer items, Star Wars items, those always go big. All right, let's bring it home, Gina Grad.
You got it. I'm Gina Grad, and that's the news.
Gina Grad.
That was the news with Gina Grad.
Last but not least, Geico. They're offering an extra 15% credit on car, motorcycle, and RV insurance. That's right, 15% on top of the money Geico could already be saving you if you're hip enough to be with Geico. So hook up with Geico, get the 15% off, and get the savings you'd normally get if you're with Geico anyway, because it'd save you straight away anyway. Get it the extra 15% when you switch over by October 7th. That's Geico. Visit geico.com. All right. Ed Calderon is going to come in here. He's an expert in security and all things Mexico. He's going to tell us all about that massacre that took place at the rehab center and all what's going on south of the border when he comes in a second. I will bid adieu to Gina Grad and Bald Brian and Ed Calderon coming in next.
And now, Alcoa presents Definitely Not a Jew on the Adam Carolla Show. Dateline, Escambia County, Florida. A 33-year-old woman was charged with petty theft and burglary of an occupied residence after the homeowner walked in to find the woman at their stove making ramen noodles. Definitely not a Jew.
Ed Calderon, our guest, always a good guest, friend of the show, security expert, and also an expert, obviously, on everything south of the border as well. But, as I look at you, I think about all the stuff I want to ask about in our own country pertaining to security. So good to see you again, my friend.
Thank you for having me back.
There was the massacre of the 27 folks in rehab, or what they called rehab. I mean, who knows out of Mexico, whatever. I never know what anything's called or labeled. There's also, I just heard of all the cops basically filing for, early retirement in New York, and cops in general just sort of standing down and getting out of the way. Murders up in the United States, general sort of chaos. You come from some of that chaos in Mexico, so you probably have a much better handle on it.
Well, I have a lot of law enforcement professional friends and students that I go out and I speak to some law enforcement agencies out there, and the whole being hated by the public as a Mexican cop for about 12 years, I've experienced that. I've experienced the whole being.
Well, what was that relationship? I mean, so your average. All right, so let's do this, expert Ed Calderon. I live in a nice neighborhood. The cops are nice. The people live in the neighborhood are nice. And I have sheriff cruisers go up and down the street. They wave to me and I wave to them. That's our interaction.
Yeah.
Then there's other versions where they're in Baltimore and they're in the inner city and they're having to deal and scrap and tussle with people. The fine people, the inner city of Baltimore, have a different relationship. Is it the same with Mexico, or is it different?
No, not completely different. I mean, it's worry about the criminals and also worry about the cops in a lot of places. So it's a fear. The whole culture of bribery is inherent in what you would tell your kid when he's going out for a night of partying. Watch out for criminals and also watch out for the cops. Here's 500 pesos. Put it in your top pocket. So when you get stopped for a traffic violation of some sort during the night, you have the ability to take out the money without it looking like you're taking out a gun. And corruption is rampant and has been rampant in Mexico for years.
500 pesos these days? Because the peso's been all over the road.
That's probably maybe $18, maybe 20.
So here, you'd say to your young kid who's going out on a Saturday night, hey, don't drink and drive. Now be careful out there. Take an Uber, have a designated driver. Do they do that in Mexico?
I mean, yeah, and some higher class maybe individuals that are upper middle class, but mostly not really. There's this concept of dangerous freedom in Mexico,
right?
The whole. I'm going to go out and do what I do, and if the cops stop me, there's ways to get around it. There's a story I always tell about an individual that I had some interactions with, an American who went down to Mexico and married into a Mexican family. He was driving drunk home because that's what you do in Mexico. Apparently not in the U.S. It's not allowed in the U.S.
Well, let me tell you, just to interject, work in construction here in L.A. with a lot of Mexican dudes who like to have a six-pack after work.
Yeah.
I've worked with guys that had 7 DUIs, because what I'm basically saying is it's like when someone grows up in, for lack of a better example, but just go along with me. You grow up in Hawaii and the age of consent for a woman is 15, and the next thing you know, you move to Manhattan and you're just like fucking 15-year-olds, and someone's going like, we got to arrest you, and you're going, what the fuck? What's wrong with that? This is what I do. It's like you're telling that guy from Mexico, you can't have 4 beers and drive home after work. It's like, why not? This is our thing.
That's not the wiring is different. Well, counterpart to that, American goes down there, drives drunk home, flips over his car, calls me. It's like, hey, Ed, are you up? It's 3 a.m, but yeah, what's going on? I just flipped my car and I'm drunk. And I told him, peek your head out of the window, check yourself, see if you're all right. Is there anybody around? He said, no. Okay, take the keys out of the ignition and go home.
Right.
I was like, no. Yeah. No. Okay. He left, got in a taxi, called his girlfriend, now wife, and told her to report the car stolen. And 2 days later, they delivered his wrecked car to his house and apologized for the criminality in the city.
Right.
That is completely upside down to the U.S., of course. Right. And I don't think when I hear the protesters, corrupt cops, violent cops killing civilians, I know there's bad apples out there, there's bad people, bad situations, but I don't think they have a concept of what a real corrupt police force is. How some police forces out there in parts of Mexico basically work for some of the cartels and how they target people.
How many years were you an officer in Tijuana?
12 years.
So of what you speak. Yeah, it is crazy that somehow all the fucking lunatic nutjob pussies in this country have created some sort of rarefied air that we hold our country up to, like never racism, never corruption, no bad cops, one child left behind, all teachers. It's like, are you fucking high? What kind of fucking society do you think we're running here where there's no bad cops, there's no bad teachers, there's no bad anything? Everybody gets world-class health care. They're fucking idiots with their fucking head in the clouds. All we can do is compare ourselves to other nations and other countries and ourselves and our history and see if we can up our game.
I mean, from a completely outside perspective, I was in Atlanta doing a class while the riots were going on, and I was seeing how the treatment of the police, as far as the riots go, and it was, I mean, the same riot would happen in a place like Mexico, and a few of them would probably disappear overnight as far as the leadership
of the rioters,
or the organizers. That's what happens. Live rounds would be put into the crowd. agitators would be put into the crowd who are maybe law enforcement or cartel guys and are influenced by the local heads of whatever to just put down the riots because they affect their interest. You have it here in the U.S. You have it completely. I mean, the way that law enforcement acts in the U.S. as purely as an outsider, just looking at it, I mean, there are things that could be better. I'm aware there are systemic things in some departments that might need to change. Training might need to be changed. But as a whole, I mean, it's not a sinking ship at all. I don't see it as that. I mean, it's not something you should burn and start over again.
Well, we got to reimagine it, Ed. We got to reimagine policing with community policing.
Well, you already did in that Chaz area in Seattle, which I also got to look at. Was pretty interesting.
Oh, did you go there?
Yeah.
What did it look like from the inside?
A circus?
Yes, of course it's a circus. You have fucking stoner Dumbo assholes running this thing.
And as a Mexican, the first thing I noticed was that they put a wall around it.
Oh, really? No. Build that wall.
They build a wall around it.
Yeah, so our, and also, when the police pull out or pull back, I mean, the homicides, the murders, and, the assaults, and everything you don't want just goes up when you pull the cops out. Then you have fucking pea-brains like AOC explaining that, when poor people are scared they can't pay rent, maybe they steal a loaf of bread. I mean, she sounds like a fucking idiot. And by the way, she's going to get people killed with that kind of... She's fucking idiot. I mean, the only person dumber than her are the people who listen to her. And she's a fucking liar. Like, she's like, people, they can't pay their rent, so they're fearing, they don't want to go to bed hungry, so they steal a loaf of bread. Hey, bitch, you think that's what we're talking about? Is anyone talking about the theft of carbohydrates? No one's talking about stealing buns or breads or bagels. People are talking about people killing people, you fucking nut job.
Seeing the looting in Atlanta and some of the businesses that were broken into, seeing some of the same things. Like, I was traveling and I was doing classes dealing with urban survival in some of these places, and they said, hey, there's a riot. I think we're not going to have to do a class. And I'm like, oh, perfect. We can use it as a backdrop so people can go and see things in a different way. I didn't see anybody stealing any bread. I didn't see anybody stealing any loaves, milk or diapers. I saw Vans stores being hit. I saw jewelry stores being hit. I saw liquor stores being hit. And I don't know what they're talking about as far as the loaves of bread goes. I mean, there weren't hungry people,
Well, if you have the clip, Max Patter, you can find it. She doesn't know what she's talking about either. She's just lying. I mean, it's not even about... She's an intelligent person. She went to BU, I think. She's literally just lying her fucking face off. Speaking truth to power. How about you just speak some fucking truth to anyone who's listening, you fucking nut job? This notion of... she's just lying. I mean, I don't know why she doesn't feel more self-conscious about lying. But for you and your assessment of policing and our police force, what do you think? What are some of the things that you would think make a difference? I mean, you train. And I also want to talk about sort of urban survival. I mean, we have that couple that was out on their lawn with the AR-15 and the pistol. The form probably looked pretty bad, but seemed to get the job done.
Well, I mean, the only thing I would say there is that, probably not point the gun out at the people as they're walking by. Maybe keep a low port or a high port type guard with the rifle.
Right.
I mean, you see what owning a firearm and being able to defend yourself and your property is, I mean, it's a funny image of seeing these two people there. I mean, there was a lot of memes going around about them, but their property wasn't, the property wasn't, broken into specifically. They weren't, their house wasn't looted or whatever. But that's a good example. But there's also another example of New York where there's a couple, a husband and a wife outside of their store. They're getting broken into. The looters are beating the wife on the ground, and the husband is standing there with a broomstick trying to fight him off. Get off my wife! Basic scream, right? So, it's interesting. COVID happened. Lines of people getting a gun. Now these riots happen all over the country, and then again, the whole need for people to be able to take responsibility of their own safety and defending their property and themselves with guns when cops are not around.
Well, what is some good, solid home protection in a world where shit goes off in a millisecond? In a world where everything's online, shit spreads like wildfire. And before you know it, wherever you live, you could have an angry mob heading down the street, right? And maybe the cops can get there, maybe they can't get there, and maybe they're not coming because a lot of these cops were just standing down while the shit went down. What are some things, home protection-wise, what are some things and ways to handle it? Like,
most people are going to think, and I'm going to talk about get a shotgun. One thing is learning about history and how these things kind of progress. When you were seeing all these news stories and videos of people's neighborhoods getting people and rioters outside the street and stuff like that, you can see the value of actually having a community around you where you talk to people. So. I'll take the example of some of the hurricanes that hit Houston a few years back. The community was pretty solid. It's pretty solid communities. They basically rescued themselves. They policed their own areas. Everybody there had guns, so they kept looters away. It's a beautiful thing when it exists. Speaking as an individual family, a man that carries an umbrella is a fool every day until it rains. Mm-hmm. You can buy a gun and keep it in a closet, but that's not good to you. It's going to be an amulet if you don't know how to use it or don't train how to use it. If you have a firearm in the vicinity of your house, probably it's going to get used, possibilities of it being used raised, and possibilities of you getting shot raised. So probably some sort of first aid or medical management training needs to be put into the equation with your firearm. So I'll say this. Training is what I would advise anybody that wants to keep themselves and their family a bit safer during situations like that. We don't think about it, and we think of it as extreme, just like you would think when we see a History Channel with all the prepper guys that were moving around in a little scooter with all their cans of beans and behind them in these shows. We would view them as extremes, but COVID hit, and it's not that extreme anymore.
What would that couple in St. Louis who went out barefoot with the gun and the wife, what would be, if you were in the house, what would be the best way to handle that when you knew the mob was heading your direction, possibly heading your direction? Not sure if they were stopping.
Personally, I would realize that the house itself isn't a value. The value is myself and my wife, and that value of life should be first in my mind as priorities. Anything that's important should be in some sort of receptacle that I can move it quickly with. Probably my car keys and the ability to get to my car, or the ability to leave the area would be a reasonable thing to always have in your mind. I don't care if you have an AR-15 and one of those old small pistols that like the lady had. That's not going to shoot through a whole crowd of people.
No, it's not. It may dissuade them.
It may dissuade them, but I'd say they were flagging everybody around them with the rifle and the pistol, even the media and maybe even people that were there, not doing anything destructive. I would say, the lack of training, and also I could see the house behind them. That's a pretty expensive house to be rocking an AR with a strap that looks like it was taken off a suitcase. But that's just that's just a small critique. I would probably not flag everybody around there, basically further agitating people. Gladly, nobody in that crowd of protesters was armed, or the response would have been almost immediately when they saw that gun.
Well, so the crowd breaks the gate down on the side, and they're sort of trucking up the street. You're in the house with your wife.
Yeah.
I'd
probably stand outside of my front door and in presence with my rifle and try and dissuade people to leave.
Just step out. Front door.
That gives me options.
Have the rifle.
That gives me options. That doesn't corner me inside of a box that I might not be able to get out of.
Right.
And I would be ready to leave. I know that may sound bad to some gun ho American. Let's get them type.
Right.
You can replace the house, and he looks like a man that has house insurance for some reason. So I think the safety of the family and should be first. I would step outside that house and ask people to not approach. Basically,
do you have a weapon of choice for home protection?
I'd say a 12 gauge Mossberg 500 is my weapon of choice for home protection.
How many shells does that hold?
Depends on the model you get, but it's good enough with 6.
Good enough.
A basic home defense shotgun for a lot of reasons. It's semi-automatic, so it makes you selective as far as what you're going to shoot. It's a pretty available round. It's a universally available round here in the U.S. It doesn't fall under the restrictions that a lot of your states are now getting into, so you can move around and travel around and have the same option with you. It's pretty cheap to train on, which is another option that I always tell people. Find something that's cheap to train on.
Train on meaning the ammunition's fairly cheap?
Buy a bunch of that ammunition, go to a class, shoot that shotgun in the context of a home defense scenario. And if you have to move out of state, you can take it with you. You can get one similar. It's not that expensive, and it's a good entryway. AR-15s are also amazing. There's a reason why they get used by the variants. The civilian variants get used by criminals in other parts of the world. But I'd say, and my personal choice, I'd say a 12 gauge shotgun, and that's also good for other things like hunting. So
hunting looters, that is. We have the AOC 36-second clip about her explaining what these people are doing. I mean, why there's an uptick in crime. Here it is. Dawson, get ready. Dawson, you have the trash can near you to throw up into? This is her explanation of why. There was a 1-year-old kid who was shot in the stroller yesterday, but here's the explanation of the uptick in murders. Here we go.
Why is this uptick in crime happening?
Why?
Well, let's think about it. Do we think this has to do with the fact that there's record unemployment in the United States right now? The fact that people are at a level of economic desperation that we have not seen since the Great Recession? Maybe this has to do with the fact that people aren't paying their rent and are scared to pay their rent. And so they go out and they need to feed their child and they don't have money. So you maybe they're put in a position where they feel like they either need to shoplift some bread or go hungry that night.
Oh, well, thank you for addressing the 110% uptick in murders in your city. I didn't know it was, is this bread, is this bun and bread, or is it anything to be like hot dog buns, Kaiser rolls, all that stuff, or with just bread?
I don't know. I travel a lot. And I talk to a lot of people, and I don't know what she's talking about with the whole bread scenario.
There's bread stolen.
There's
their kids.
There's programs.
Kids are hungry.
There's programs all over the place to feed the needy.
That's why the Target store is getting destroyed.
Stolen because they're going from the bakery department.
There's
a bread over there.
There's the picture going around of a kid stealing a big Lego set out of Target, which was pretty hilarious. But you have overweight homeless people with smartphones in the U.S., and I don't know what she's talking about.
She doesn't know what she's talking about either. That's the good news is she thinks you're stupid. That's how that works. Or she just says, by the way, if I hear anyone go, the fact is, you want to know what the truth is? The truth or the facts are, the fact or the truth of the matter, factually and truthfully, I know whatever's coming out of their mouths is total horse shit. Total shit. You always tell she's full of shit because she goes, the fact or the truth, the factually, what's going on, 100% factually and truthfully, is they're going after bread. Now, some of them will get one of those wheels where they can grind the, they can take the wheat and grind it into flour, and then they can steal those.
Molcajete.
And they make tortillas on their thighs.
Yeah, it's also good to break storefront windows with it. It's pretty heavy. So, yeah.
So, jumping around. So, the massacre, 27 dead at what we heard is, well, first off, that story barely made it over the border.
Yeah.
We were so caught up in Trump and COVID and everything else, lockdowns and everything else. That story barely made it here. 27 people dead at a Mexican rehab facility.
Yeah.
What is that story?
Well, a history about rehab facilities in Mexico. Basically, anybody that has a large property that can house a lot of people can start their own rehab facility. There's ways that you have to go and get certain permits and things of this nature. But rehab in Mexico isn't like rehab. Here in California, you have interesting rehab centers. They're pretty good. But in Mexico, it's basically your family signs an agreement with the rehab center, and they basically abduct you and put you into this rehab center and hold you there because your family already authorized that you could be there. They obviously there's a process. They see what if you have a criminal background, if you have some sort of history with substances. So the legitimate ones, your family will literally sign a paper and you'll get brought into these. The thing is that it's also a perfect front for some cartels to house and feed their hired guns. Irapuato.
So you almost need like a fraternity for your henchmen, right?
Yeah.
Like almost a barracks.
Yes.
And so you call it a rehab center, but it's not a rehab center. It's where your henchmen are all hanging out, being housed.
There's a history of centers like this in Mexico being utilized, and actually, that's not the first massacre that has happened in a rehab center.
Well, so now I'm looking at Max Paddock, because when we heard this story a month ago, it's like, why would you go in and kill 27 people in a rehab center? Because we're picturing it like Dr. Drew standing there with a clipboard.
Oh, no.
Not that.
Not that. So it's the rehab center is in the state of Guanajuato. Guanajuato used to be, 5 years ago, Guanajuato was one of the safest states in Mexico. It's currently in a turf war between a few cartels. The local cartel that dedicates itself to stealing oil, gas, basically petroleum. The Sinaloa cartel that wants to put drugs through that area, and the major new generation cartel out of Guadalajara, ultra-violent, ultra-militarized cartel. So the story goes that the new generation cartel is pumping people and guns into the area to push out a guy they call El Marro, which means the mallet, who is the head of the local cartel there. And so when the cartel guys, cartel gunmen are in the area, they're not armed all the time, because that's how you get people working independently and doing shit. So what they would do is what do you mean that's how you get people working independently and doing shit? So imagine you have a group of cartel guys. Let's say you have this 28 cartel guys. You send them to the neighboring state to do things for you, like affect the distribution networks of the rival cartels. And they say, well, why not? Why don't we just rob a bank too while we're at it? We have a lot of guns. There's a lot of us, so let's go do that too. Right. So a way they keep them from doing that type of stuff is that they disarm them when they're not doing cartel work, and they house them in places like this center.
So when we're sitting here going, wait a minute, who would fucking shoot 27 people that were rehabbing for no reason?
Well,
is this 100% in your mind? Like, well, first off, what's the motivation to go in and shoot up a rehab center unless it's this, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that everybody in that center was 100% a cartel guy working for the new generation cartel. But a few of the survivors say that around 6 men came to the door, all heavily armed. Put the guys that were doing security at the door. Now, interesting thing, there's some say one thing, some say the other. Some say the guys at the door were armed and were disarmed, which would make sense if it was a cartel safe house. They were probably armed. Then they make their way up where everybody was basically camping out or laying down on the ground. Everybody was sleeping on the ground. Not normal for a rehab center. Usually they have dormitories or a sleeping area. So again, another suspicious thing. And a lot of them were well-dressed, well-groomed. A lot of them had some, name brand clothing. Your cartel guy, usually you spend your money on clothing. And they were asked about a few names that they wanted from the crowd. Who here works for this guy? Who here works for that guy? Nobody said anything. Somebody said, this is on behalf of El Marro, and just full automatic fire on all of them.
How fucking lawless is this place? I mean, how fucking insane is this? We never stopped talking about, the cop. He wrestled with the guy. He was sleeping in the parking lot of the Wendy's. He got hold of him. We're ready to burn we do burn the place down. That's real lawlessness.
Yeah.
Over there. That's insane lawlessness.
It took 25 to 30 minutes for responding agencies to actually go in there. The Red Cross didn't want to do any, the emergency services didn't want to go in there to treat anybody there. So a lot of them bled out and were, I got some reports and pictures from the actual event. And some of the guys said, we could have saved some of these people, but they wouldn't secure the area so we can go in there. Some of them bled out through their legs and stuff like that.
So that's one cartel going after another cartel, safe house dormitory, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, that's kind of the narrative.
Now, is there going to be a retaliation to that?
There were immediate retaliations across the city and small distribution nodules around the city where some of these cartels distribute drugs. There were firefights throughout the night when basically convoys of one group would meet the other and have at it each other, and then the military would come in and they would have at it with the military. So they basically have the state held for ransom. So that's the local cartel, the cartel of Santa Rosa de Lima, run by Almaro. Basically said, well, if the army wants to come and get me, they actually captured his mother and a few of his family members, and rumor goes that he pressured the government to let them go. They were let go, and all charges were dropped. But the way he pressured the government is that if you don't do this, I'll blow up your refineries.
Is it? Jesus Christ! What year is it over there? Oh, God, what fucking year is it? Okay. By the way, hey, assholes, this thing where they go, people are generally good, okay? People are generally good and they want the right thing, and they fucking don't. People need to be policed, or they need to be something. You can't just fucking let them go and go, do the right thing. They'll do the right thing. No, they fucking won't.
No, and if there's places in Mexico where the police have been extracted from the equation. And right. Mad Max level. That's Mad Max era level.
Well, I don't know. Can't we do a little experiment here in the United States? What happens when the cops go away? We're going to do community policing. How much community policing is going on in those places where the cops have gone away?
You hear stories about armed civilian groups coming up and fighting against the cartels, and then later on, some of these were actually featured in documentaries on Netflix and stuff like that. And then later on, you realize that it was basically another cartel. They just formed another cartel.
So the Edward James Olmos situation, was it Blood In, Blood Out, or am I making that one up? American Me, sorry. I keep screwing that one. Was Danny Trejo in Blood In, Blood Out? I'm swapping that one out. But anyway. The Edward James Olmos situation, American Me thing, where he's making a movie about the Mexican cartels, or the Mexican prison cartel or whatever, and
this was in the 90s, right?
Yeah, and 3 consultants were killed.
Yeah.
And he's scared to talk about it.
Yeah.
'Cause I think there was some homosexuality or something, and they were the consultants or whomever's or Danny Trejo's don't do that. And there's well, I'm making a movie. I'm an artist. No.
Well, I've only had I've only had dealings with a few Laeme people, the Mexican mafia guys, and my whole dealing with them or experiencing that side of criminality from the U.S. was in Tijuana, because the cartels would hire them as bodyguards or hitman to go work down south and then escape back to the U.S. so they wouldn't get caught. That was kind of my experience with some of the Laeme members.
Laeme, what members?
Laeme, the M, basically, the Mexican mafia. It's one of the ways they call themselves, the Black Hand. La Mano Negra.
Is there cartels and the Mexican mafia?
So, way back in, I think, the 92, I think, or 91. This is before my time active, but this is something that was common street knowledge. There's a guy that went by David Baron El Popeye. He was a Mexican mafia member, and his story. He was originally from Tijuana. Came to live in California. Got involved in things that sent him to prison, and he was recruited as part of LAME, the Mexican mafia. Went back down to Mexico, Tijuana, and was hired by the Arellano Felix cartel, or the Tijuana cartel. People watching Narcos Mexico will know what I'm talking about. They're into that. So this cartel group took him down to a high level meeting at a nightclub in Mexico called Christine's nightclub, and these guys were rivals of El Chapo Guzman and the Sinaloa cartel. So they come into this club dressed as federal police officers, get into this massive shootout, and David El Popeye Baron was one of the only ones that survived that shootout and extracted Los Arellano Felix cartel guy members out of there. Took guns off bodies and just did some Rambo stuff. After that, they told him, like, you're in charge of our security now. Can we hire more Mexican mafia guys like you from the U.S. to come down and work for us? And it's like, he said, well, yeah, we'll start off with $500 a week plus bonuses for work, and here's $2,000 for you to start. We need more.
Was it in the early 90s?
Early 90s, right? So that's when you started seeing a lot of these all tatted up guys with ski masks going down to Mexico and doing jobs for the cartel.
So guys going from California, LA, wherever, crossing in, doing work in Mexico, and then coming back.
Yeah. Some of them, there's rumors about all this type of stuff, and I've heard some pretty interesting ones. Some Israeli military guy was around during the 90s training some of these guys down in Mexico in clandestine underground shooting ranges and body disposal, methods to move things that without detection from K9 units, that type of stuff.
Is there any, I don't really trust the media anymore. I think everything's just kind of a story they want to tell.
Yeah.
And, I look at it this way. They say, we want to report on bad cops or bad cop killings. Okay. What happens when a black cop shoots a white guy? Like, we're not reporting that. Okay, but what happens if a black guy shoots another black guy? It's like, not going to report that.
Yeah.
What happens if a Mexican cop shoots a Mexican or something? Like, it's not. Well, okay, so you want to report cop shootings. Yeah, but you're only going to report a white cop shooting a black man. Yeah. Okay. Well, now I'm starting to wonder how you disseminate this information. What else am I missing? I must be missing a lot of cops being shot. I mean, one of the worst cop shootings the last few years was just this 15, 16-year-old kid just hopped the fence, and probably a Mexican kid, and a Mexican cop just shot him in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, just smoke that 15-year-old kid. By the way, I don't care that much because it's like, oh, this kid was wanted for a murder and he had a gun on him. It's like, all right, well, if you're going to murder people when you're 15 and you keep a rod on you, then sometimes you get shot by cops. Yeah. I get it. But the news wasn't really that interested in that because the kid was Mexican and not black, and I get it. But it makes me wonder about the 27 people killed at the rehab, quote unquote, in Mexico. Why is our news... Why are we not interested in that? That's bigger than any school shooting we've had ever. Why no reporting on that? And then I wonder, it also feels like we do a kind of a little bit of a softball reporting on Mexico. Our whole thing is, I guess, because I'm always looking for the angle on everything. Trump's like, we got to build that wall. And then CNN's like, fuck you, we're not building a wall, you're nuts. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, those are our friends to the south.
Yeah.
But so they don't like to report about all the craze, carnage, and violence and whatever comes out of there. I mean, for sure, if 27 people were shot in Canada, we'd probably hear about it. People don't even know this story. Are they soft pedaling a lot of the carnage and the violence and the just insanity that's going on over there?
I mean, when I see it in the media on the state side, I would see it as in passing comment. They don't go into details about who or what or why, how the U.S. is linked to some of those massacres.
That too.
So that massacre has a clear link into the distribution of heroin and heroin in the U.S. Why? Because one of the main routes that goes through there is a Mexican heroin-related route. So that in of itself is linked to Seattle, where a lot of this heroin goes, right?
Does it go?
A lot of it goes over there, all the way to Seattle, right? And some of it goes to the east side, and it goes through there, but it doesn't get mentioned. It doesn't get mentioned what link that has to what's happening up here. Or you see,
Is it not? I mean, pardon me for sounding like Ted Nugent, but is it not reported because you would have to enhance security at the border? I mean, forget building a wall, but we would have to put more attention on that border.
I'd say one, you would have to put more attention on the border. Two, you would have to reconcile that a lot of the permissive states and cities in the U.S. that feed most of these cartels with the money that they then use to get guns and do whatever they do are mostly a very specific permissive cities that allow them to do what they do.
So Seattle's sort of like saying, look, we can have some safe injection zones, and we're not gonna arrest people that are shooting up heroin. But they're not really saying where the heroin's coming from.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, I've been to
never
Seattle.
even thought about that. So it's like Seattle's going like, hey, man, if you want to get high, it's cool. You want to get high and go up to the Space Needle, it's cool. But then where's the money going? Where are you getting the heroin? Where's that ending up?
An interesting moment that I had was walking through a street in Seattle, seeing all the needles littering the ground, like a lot of them.
Of Xanadu? But that's the perfect place. They've reimagined policing of it.
And I asked, who pays for all these needles? And taxes. Awesome. So taxpayers are paying for needles that get filled with heroin from Mexico that has some fentanyl from China, and then people use it here and they get dumped on the ground. And okay, now I see. That's what's happening there. Doesn't make sense for them to mention where the heroin came from, where the fentanyl came from, and what all of the intentions from the people that put the fentanyl into Mexico have, and how much money gets made by the heroin being injected by that dude in the middle of Seattle. And how that relates to a place in Irapata where 27 people got shot as they were laying down.
Right. So
why I don't see that reported, and I mean I don't know why that would not kind of go into the conversation.
Well, it was reported enough that I had heard of it, but I watched the news pretty religiously, and it didn't seem to pop up. It doesn't mean it doesn't show up. People are a little disingenuous sometimes when they go, oh, what do you mean? It was on the third page of CNN Online, and it's like, yeah, no, but that's different than making the news, really making the rounds. So it's also depressing when you hear all this stuff. What you're also going to tell us about some new stories and some new situations and some new things involving the cartels. I want to give your company a plug, by the way. Emerson Knives, tactical folding knives, 100% made in the USA. And that's Ed's product. You can go to emersonKnives.com. And if Ed puts his name on it, or did you create these knives?
So the Emerson Knives has been basically it's run by a man named Ernest Emerson. He basically invented the tactical folding knife. Mm-hmm. He's made knives for NASA. He's made knives for a bunch of your best and brightest as far as the military goes. And he and me are working on putting one of my knife designs out there. It already broke the internet at once as far as being dropped and sold. So, yeah, I'm working with them closely as far as putting some of these products out there.
So I want to tease the. It's a good-looking knife. We're looking at it now. I want to tease the whatever is new and breaking in the cartel news cycle, which you'll tell us in a second. First, I'll tell you about Meguiar's. Car waxes have come a long way. Last year, Meguiar's introduced hybrid ceramic technology. It's advanced SiO2 hybrid technology, delivers ceramic wax protection and durability, no rubbing, curing, or buffing. Either provides extra water beating action. This year's Meguiar's launched their liquid version, seals the paint for long-lasting protection against the elements, easy to use, apply like a traditional wax. And they also have the hybrid ceramic spray detailer. I love this stuff. You guys, sometimes you wash your car in your driveway, you take your car to the car wash, you can just pull it in the garage, get it in some shade, and do that spray detailer and clean it up, save some water. Removes contaminant like dust, fingerprints, bird droppings, boosts gloss, enhances protection as well. Ceramic made easy. That's what Meguiar's does. So what is up? What's new? And just because it popped in my head, do different cartels specialize? I know they're all pretty diversified now, but do they handle different things? Fentanyl over here and heroin over there and prostitution over there. I mean, I know they're all diversified, but they all have their own, like we have here where it's like, you could get a piece of fish at that place, but it's a steakhouse. You should get the steak. But if you want the fish, then you head down to Chadney's over on PCH. That's where you get the fish. But you could get steak there, too. But we have kind of our strengths and our specialties.
Yeah, I think the two major ones, the Sinaloa cartel and the New Generation cartel, are at odds because they specialize in the same thing, right? So fentanyl, heroin, meth production, fake fentanyl, well, not fake fentanyl, but Mexican fentanyl pills made into the shape of of what the prescription regular ones would be like. Prostitution, human trafficking, gun smuggling, you name it, extortion, paid sicariato, which means paying somebody to kill somebody. All this stuff is, both of them specialize in the same thing.
How much does it cost to kill someone in Mexico?
It would depend on who you want to kill. I've heard everything from $12,000 to kill somebody that owns a business that is competing with you to, I don't know, to the Mexican mafia way back when was offered $2 million to kill El Chapo back in the 90s here in the U.S. when he would come to treat one of his sons that had some health problems. Back then, he was the enemy of the Tijuana cartel, so that they would hire Mexican mafia guys, and the going rate for his head was $2 million. So depends on who you are.
If you're going to kill a competitor, literally, like you had a pizza joint, this guy opened a pizza joint on the other corner, and you were going to kill him.
I've seen people get killed for $200.
Would you get? What would be the chances you would never see the inside of a courtroom?
90% of all murders in Mexico are unsolved, so pretty good.
All right. Hey, Chris, if things don't work out here, Chris is sneaky. Sorry. So, what is going on? What is new? Under the sun.
Probably one of the major stories out there is they attempted to assassinate the head of police in Mexico City. Our version of they call it the Distrito Federal, or the federal district. That's our version of Washington D.C. Basically. Mm-hmm. The police chief of that area was on his way to his office at 4 a.m, and a homemade modified bulletproof truck bed truck just put itself in front of its way. And 50 caliber
in front of the car's way.
Yeah, armored vehicle.
He travels in armored.
He was traveling an armored vehicle with two of his bodyguards, a car behind him, and 50 caliber, a bunch of AK-47s, AR-15s, a bunch of I think last count was 34 dudes inside of this vehicle with armor and stuff like that. We're just waiting for him. They killed two of his bodyguards, almost killed him. and it's being blamed on the new generation cartels, as we were talking about.
How did he get away?
They ran out of bullets.
Wow. So he must have got that armored car from the U.S. of A. That feels like that shit's made in America.
Well, according to what I know, it had a few failures. I don't know who made it, but it didn't have any.
Kia?
Could be. It didn't have any run flats, as they call them.
Oh, sorry. That was not made in the United States.
No, probably not. Run flats are basically a wheel inside of the regular wheel. If you flatten your tires, that wheel will hit the ground and you can still keep it rolling.
Yeah.
Another thing it didn't have was armoring on the radiator and
that
battery housing.
Not American made.
And also they hit it with a 50 cal, which is a bullet that's about the size of that. That's a bit longer than the size of that marker right there.
And that's a highlighter. That's a big shell.
That'll go through most armoring, specifically in those cars down there. So I mean, the two security agents were killed, and he was almost killed. They blamed it on the New Generation Cartel, and it's...
Are they called the New Generation Cartel?
Cartel de Jalisco de Nueva Generación. Basically, the Cartel of Jalisco, the New Generation, is what they call themselves. They're led by a man called El Mencho. Like all people down there, they have to have a nickname.
Right.
El Mencho is his name. Nemesio Ceguera Cervantes El Mencho. Again, one of the largest, biggest, more militarized cartels in Mexico. It's all over the U.S. as well. There was a recent operation that nabbed about 800 of them here in the U.S. They are...
Hold on. Was that feds doing that, or was that the community police doing it?
It was a federal...
Because I would like to reimagine how we arrest cartel guys like MS-13 and stuff.
I mean,
I'd like to reimagine how we
do a
that.
citizen arrest on a cartel guy.
Well, they should understand. Jesus fucking Christ!
Probably not going to go over too well with them. But they planned that hit because recently U.S. and Mexican law enforcement have been targeting them specifically. On the U.S. side, they targeted some family members of El Mencho, and also some of their financial structure and distribution structure. And on the Mexican side, they went after them financially, freezing a bunch of their bank accounts, a few tequila companies, a few hotels, a few restaurants, that type of stuff. And first, they killed one of the judges that was involved in a few extraditions related to the cartel. He was selling his car on Mexican Craigslist, and they walked over and shot him in the head, which was pretty insane. And then after that, a lot of the officials in Mexico City were warned that they could be next, and surely enough, they tried to go after Harfouche is his name, the police chief. There's a lot of weird stories around it. And speaking of just how weird it gets, Harfouche was also involved in the disappearance of the students, the 48 students, I think. 48. Yeah. He was a police chief in the federal police back then when that happened.
Those kids just sort of went out into the desert in a school bus or something?
So they were normalistas. It's like a commune type school that they have down there. They were on their way to Mexico City to protest.
Mm-hmm.
And
what were they protesting?
More government support for poor communities. They're more on the leftist type political spectrum. So, and this was at a time when we were kind of centrist as far as our politics in Mexico. Story goes that they're driving on. They're moving towards Mexico City. They get stopped by a state police vehicle.
They're all just in a big school bus?
Big giant school bus. All of them are in there. They get stopped by the cops. They have a aversion to authority because they're going to go to Mexico City to protest. Somebody gets squirrely. Something happens. Some sort of fight or struggle happens, and one of the cops basically lets up on this vehicle with a full auto rifle, and then somebody thinks that they're shooting from the bus to the outside, so he starts shooting too. So at some point, they massacred most of the kids on that bus. Now, what happens after is kind of nobody really knows exactly what happened, but most people think that there was some sort of military units came and also federal police, and they disappeared the bodies. So nothing else would, so it wouldn't hit the news, so it wouldn't burn the current administration that was down there. So something shady happened because they can't find them. I mean, they just disappeared.
It's been quite some time now, right?
It's been about 6 years, 7 years.
So they're gone.
They're gone.
I think they buried the bus in the desert or something.
They would probably burn the bodies and put. The rumors are that they burned the bodies and the bus, and they found pieces of the bus in junkyards spread out. So who knows?
In Mexico, when you go on a field trip, do you have to get a note from your parents?
Yes, you do.
Wow.
But
I wouldn't sign that note.
But these guys were of a university age. They were young. But so the guy that was ambushed was head of the federal police specifically in that area when that happened.
So they're holding him accountable for that?
Who knows? I mean, he was also involved in the arrest of a high-level cartel guy, and $2 million went missing from that arrest. That's also another thing that comes up in the conversation as far as Harfouche.
Is there any possible hope for Mexico? It just seems to get worse by the day. Is it involved? I mean, tell me this. Tell me if this sounds insane. International NATO-type peacekeeping troop, U.S., Canada, Mexico, U.S., Canada, Germany, and Sweden, and they just get an international peacekeeping group, and they just come in and just martial fucking law. I don't know. Is anything short of that? Is anything going to stop any of this?
I mean, first off, the country and the political structure in Mexico has been living in denial for the past almost 30 years as far as what's actually happening in Mexico. It's not a policing problem. It's not a problem of, we need to change the way we police Mexico and that's going to fix it. We need to change this. It's an urban. It's guerrilla warfare performed by several groups that clearly have their own motivations and intentions. They're utilizing terrorist tactics. It's a war. It's an open war. Every now and then I post up a patch that some of my friends here in the U.S. made for me. Some of my U.S. military veteran friends made this drug war veteran patch, and it's funny. Because, hey, you should have a drug war veteran patch. Mexico doesn't recognize that they have a war going down there. The current president of Mexico said there is no war. I don't know what everybody's talking about. It's this whole drug war nonsense is a word. You just don't say it, and it's not the case. Abrazos no balazos, hugs not bullets.
People stealing bread, tortillas.
People stealing tortillas.
I hope they're stealing fucking corn tortillas. It drives me nuts when people make tacos out of flour tortillas. I fucking right. Good. You should come to my house. I want a corn. I want flour on my tortilla. I'm are you fucking nuts on a? You want to have a taco made out of flour?
When I come back, I'll bring you some of the good stuff from the handmade stuff. Where the lady doesn't even have a one eye. That's what you want. Some of that
blind lady making them on her thigh.
Yeah.
So
So as far as solutions, one, Mexico and the U.S. need to recognize that there's a war going on in Mexico that is a civil war. That's a civil war going on. There's no drug war. There's no, maybe if we send more money down there, like you and your tax paying, I pay taxes too, so me too. We pay for new police cruisers, new uniforms, new weapons for the police. And then all of a sudden those weapons get used by cops that are on the payroll from the cartels. All of a sudden some of the Marine units that your special forces trained are being bodyguards, being utilized as bodyguards by the Sinaloa cartel. This is a recent thing. So that's not working. It's not been working for the past 25, 30 years. Just putting money in the hands of people down there that then spend it on the drug war doesn't work. So what's next? I remember this whole talk about declaring the cartels as a terrorist organization, and now that's it just faded away. Any other group out there in the world will murders women and American women and children in the desert, and they will probably get a drone strike on them. But these guys don't, because they're not a terrorist organization, because they don't have political motivations. Even though they kill reporters, municipal presidents, you name it, they kill them because they don't go along with their,
How does MS-13 factor in, or do they at all? And then what would their relationship be with any of these cartels?
So so MS-13 is a boogeyman in the U.S., but not really in Mexico. Mm-hmm. They get utilized as basically labor by certain criminal groups, and not all of them. It's mostly a boogeyman that's here in the U.S. That's how they paint them up here in the U.S. It's a very much an American gang that basically got exported down to Central America and making its way up. But we have scarier people in Mexico, so they don't really figure in the whole kind of debate down there. It's a death sentence for some of them to be in certain places. That's
MS-13 in Mexico?
MS-13 and the 18th Street Gang guys, which are kind of the same thing. When the whole migrant caravan thing happened and they were moving through Mexico, a lot of them were 18th Street Gang guys, which is the rivals of the MS-13 guys. So they didn't go the straight route would be going through central Mexico into Texas, but they didn't go through there because the rivals are allied with the Zetas there, so they would get killed. That's why they went all the way to Tijuana across it to avoid that. Right. So no, they don't really factor in a lot in Mexico as far as criminality goes. They get utilized as hired hands and hired guns. On the U.S. side, they get used as distribution, but not. They don't really figure as a boogeyman in Mexico at all. Is there any new territory for these cartels? I mean, obviously Los Angeles seems to be pretty fertile ground, and it's geographically close. Is there a place that would surprise us, North Carolina, or some place that would surprise us where the cartels are kind of getting a foothold? I mean, I travel across the country again every week. I was in Denver this last weekend, and a few weekends before that I was in Michigan, out of all places, in the middle of nowhere. And I get law enforcement agents, professionals come in, and I tell them, like, what's the heroin look like here? So it's usually, Mexican heroin is usually light brown and fentanyl laced. So anytime you see that in an environment, there's usually a distribution network or nodule related to a certain faction of the Sinaloa cartel or the New Generation.
So you
cartel.
find that substance there. There's some hub somewhere in the vicinity.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And I've even in some of the higher class neighborhoods and some of the places where you would think, this is a very nice place. This is a very out of the way place. There's hillbillies here making moonshine in the hills, and not even the FBI would want to come in here. And then you see that cartel supplied elements like some of this high fentanyl laced heroin show up in the area.
Is there any form of border security that could slow this down?
I mean, there's a lot of talk about a wall. The wall is up in the places where most of the drugs that get pumped into this country go through. The wall is already up there, so that doesn't work that much.
What about technology?
I'd say if people really want to invest in border security, they should invest in the salaries of some of these border agents. I've actually worked with Border Patrol both as a training agent and also just to see what they do. These guys are being just, as far as the work they have to do, it's insane. I mean, the workload some of these people have is insane. The numbers they have aren't even close to what I think would be viable to have an actual secure border.
What do you think about military at the border?
You've already militarized the border a few times, and it's had a hit or miss type results. Some people were arrested trafficking people that were part of the Marine Corps on the border when you fortified the border for the migrant caravan. So I'm not saying that it didn't work. It did work to dissuade migrants, but it won't work, and it doesn't work to dissuade cartel guys.
Yeah, so your average poor person trying to get here to have a better life.
He's going to bump into that wall, and he's going to say, you know what? Let's get back.
But the professionals are going to figure out a way around it.
The professional will use quad drones. Now they're using swarms of drones to move drugs across the border.
Quad propeller, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, quad propeller drones, or
like
smaller,
heavier payload,
or smaller drones on a program, and a lot of them will just cross and crash on the other side.
How much can a quad drone carry? Like X amount of kilo or something?
Well, I found one, and I'm not going to talk about exactly how much, but it was a brick of a pure meth that was about that wide and about that big.
By 16. I mean, that's 25 pounds of drugs.
Yeah.
So they got that kind of lifting power.
Yeah.
A quad one.
A quad one. And then they have these small minimalistic planes they use with the load on the back, with a propeller, tunnels.
Those are ones they just drop. So it's just a quad. So you put a fence up. They put a... Hey, Orlando Bloom's skimboard, is that would that be a viable way to get drugs over the Rio Grande? So it's like a So in the military, they'd have Hueys, and then they'd have the big Hercules ones with like the big twin chop boom whatever blades on there. So you're saying like they have drones that have 4 lifting blades and can lift a kilo of heroin and bring it over and then drop it, and someone picks it up on like an ATV or something.
If they do an online search of a quad drone found in Tijuana with the drugs on it, it's probably going to be a picture that I actually took way back when. I think I was a part of the group that found the first drone that was utilized. Like I crashed on the border, on the road to Playa de Tijuana, or the beach.
Oh my God, they're going to need. Max Brad, write this idea down for my new sitcom. Cartel nerd. They're going to need kids who can fly the fucking drones, but they're in the cartel, but they have to be good at video games and putting on the virtual goggles and shit. They can't have a bunch of MS-13 fucking thugs flying those things.
There was a kid a few years back with an RC car, also caught at the border, moving drugs like that with an RC car. So
you got to be able to handle it.
It's a thing.
Jesus Christ.
Tunnels, and just the old school drug mule method. So I'll have a large amount of drugs, and I'll send a few guys in car, a few guys on foot, a few guys with some stuff in them, a few guys with laced cocaine and different packaging, maybe some fake avocados.
So just diversify.
So you just send, you will catch some of it, but you can't catch all of it.
So do you know if there's a acceptable percentage? Like you go, I got 100 pounds of fentanyl. I'm going to spread it out. I'm going to have some mules. I'm going to weld some into some truck gas tanks. I'm going to put some on some drones. I'm going to have some other guys shove it up their ass. I'm going to have some this and that. Yeah, if 40% gets through, then not too shabby. I mean, they sort of set themselves numbers that way.
I know for a fact they keep. So one way you can gauge their success is to see street value prices of the substances that these guys traffic. And if it doesn't fluctuate, it means that it's still getting through.
It's like gasoline. Like if the refinery's down, it goes up.
The only thing I've seen hit prices in any way has been this COVID epidemic. And it's because of the shutdown in China as far as precursors and the fentanyl coming into Mexico. That's the only thing that I've seen hit. But even when the migrant caravan was headed up to San Diego, when you saw all these videos of them using gas and putting the razor wire on top of the fence, which was later stolen by the people in TJ. The Tijuana people stole the wire and put it on their houses, which is pretty funny. But that didn't fluctuate drug prices. So you have to wonder, I mean, there's the military's on the border right now. There's this border fence. It's very fortified. Everybody has eyes on the border, and there was no fluctuation in prices. So it means that the drugs were still getting through. So all of that didn't mean anything to them. So you'd have to think, why is that? Well, they throw enough of it over the fence, and they just expect for a few of it to be, some of it to be captured or found, and they just keep going.
Well, at the end of the day, I don't know, can you find that picture of the drone that Ed may have taken the picture of, the quad drone? But that could be your new nickname, Ed Quadrone.
Ed Quadrone could be.
It's like a good tequila.
I'm not good. I've crashed a few drones, so that's probably not a good.
I mean, if you start thinking at the end of the day, you just have to have people not want to do fentanyl or heroin anymore. Like where there's a fucking
I think
there's a way.
What I think about is what's the next one. We're currently in fentanyl land, and I think most of the drug cartels have taken this situation with the COVID epidemic shutting down their ability to produce what their cash crop. So what are they looking at next? And I think what they're looking at next is bogus pain medication, finding ways to simulate or produce their own opiates that look like some of the.
We're gonna cut down. We're cracking down on Oxycontin and Codone and oxycodone, all that stuff. We're Vicodin. We're cutting down on all that shit, but there's still a lot of people like to take 100 pills a day.
Yes,
and Mexico's going to step in and fill that void.
That is what I see now. They're working on making things look like prescription medication.
And with the help of the Chinese and computers, they're going to get dead nuts on, right?
Well, I mean, the ability to produce fentanyl in Mexico was not unheard of until a few years back, and now you find facilities that are producing it at an industrial level with suspiciously similar setups as some of the Chinese laboratories that you see in some of the documentaries I've seen out of China, where people go there and just change a single molecule and now it's legal type thing. The designer drugs that have been long since been a thing in Europe and that come out of China. You see some of the same engineering, some of the chemical engineering. It's obviously being exported not just as a substance, but also as a means to produce, and the education behind how you produce it is being exported to. I think eventually you'll end up with a Mexico that produces just as well and just as much as China. And that's a nightmare scenario for the U.S., I think.
All right, let me hit... can you find that picture, Max Spanna?
Well, I mean, as far as the drones go, there's one that crashed in 2015, but
Ed'll look on his phone.
Yeah, it just looks like a drone with
with a square next to it.
Let me hit Simply Safe. Fear has no place at home, and that's where Simply Safe comes in. Protect your home. Do it today. Get free shipping at simplysafe.com/Adam. Well, let's see. Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
It's a quad drone crash with a brick of, I don't know, what is that, fentanyl?
That's a lot of meth. A lot of very, very beautiful, clear, high quality meth that is what's on its way to the 5 corridor up here, probably.
Oh, the 5 corridor, you're saying?
Yeah.
Like as in the 5 freeway?
Yeah, that's the largest drug route, richest drug route on the planet is a 5.
Really?
Freeway. Yeah.
Where does it go all the way through to?
All the way to. I mean, I've seen some of this type of stuff show up in places like Oakland, California. Like uncut, unopened packages that fresh off over the border show up all the way up there.
Well, we'll do this on a regular basis because we're so interested in this subject. And you can go to Ed's Manifesto. You can shoot him a tweet or an Instagram at Ed's Manifesto. Website, edsmanifesto.com. And the new knives, which are used, I've seen enough episodes of Hawaii Five-O's. You take the knife after the drone crashes, you stab it into the white box, and you taste it with your tongue, and you go.
I've heard and seen at least one person do something like that, and it did not turn out too well.
Well, that's because they weren't using the right knife. Tactical folding knives, 100% made in the USA. Emerson Knives, emersonKnives.com is where you go and get Ed's custom job out there. His signature knife, named after his mom, Elvia. Is it Elvia? Elvia. So, also Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, Tempe, Arizona. I'm doing stand-up all over the place. So, coming up July 24th, 25th in Addison, Texas. And go to adamcarolla.com for all the live shows. And get my book, I'm Your Emotional Support Animal. Available now on Amazon. Bookmark Gus and click through. Until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Gina and Bald and Ed Calderon saying mahalo.